The time for convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. At this time, I will ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. I recognize the senator from the 28th for the reading of the journal.
Good morning, Mr. President. We got a great lineup of pages today. We got Rishabh Bhatt, Connie Tarpley, Liza Douglas, Barrett Dunn, Tori Simone Ferris, Scarlett Gold, Kobe Hennigan, J.C. Hill, Ralph McMurray, Emma Turman, Giovanna Willoughby, Jeremiah Henderson, Mauricio Lopez, Shruti Balakander, Nelson Pinnock, and Jesse Claire Churchwell. Thank you, pages. Look forward to working with y'all today. Y'all
All
give them a round of
right. Let's give them a round of applause, everybody.
And one little side note, Mr. President, today is Type 1 Day here at the Capitol, and several of our pages are here representing Type 1 Day. And so we, again, thank them. On top of Type 1 Day, it's also Bake a Pie and Solidarity Day. It's Celebrate Scientists Day. It's Dribble to Work Day. I think I saw the senator from the 8th dribbling earlier this morning. It's Genius Day, International Ask a Question Day, Learn About Butterflies Day, and being 314, it's also National Pie Day, P-I, not P-I-E. So, what else we got? Milwaukee Braves future home run king Hammerin' Hank Aaron homered in his debut exhibition game against the Boston Red Sox on this day in 1954. And on this day in 1794, American inventor Eli Whitney received a patent for the cotton gin. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk. First reading and references the Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 297 by Senator Hodges of the 3rd, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize McIntosh County to exercise all redevelopment and other powers provided for under Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 7 of the Georgia Constitution and Chapter 44 of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 298 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, a bill to be entitled an act creating a board of commissioners for Rockdale County.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 299 by Senator Mallow of the 2nd, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city of
State
Port
and local
Wentworth.
government.
Senate Bill 300 by Senator Harbison of the 15th, a bill to be entitled an act to create a board of elections and registration for
State and local government.
Senate Bill 301 by Senator Walker the 3rd of the 20th, a bill to be entitled an act providing for the election of members of the Board
State
of
and local
Education of Dodge.
government.
Senate Bill 302 by Senator Sims of the 12th, a bill to be entitled an act providing a homestead exemption from Early County School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes in the amount of $150,000 of the assessed value of the homestead for 5 years for residents of that school district
State
for
and
70
local
years.
government.
Senate Resolution 296 by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Excessive Vehicle Noise and Related Crimes and for other purposes.
Rules, excuse me.
Senate Resolution 300 by Senator McLaurin of the 14th and others, a resolution urging the Public Service Commission to pursue actions to protect
Regulated
200
industries.
Senate Resolution 308 by Senator Anderson of the 24th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Recycling Efficiency and Economic Development and for other purposes.
Rules.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading and references the House bills, please.
House Bill 468 by Representative Bentley of the 150th, a bill to be entitled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Butler.
State and local government.
House Bill 511 by Representative Horner of the 3rd and Tarvin of the 2nd, a bill to be entitled an act to provide a homestead
State
exemption
and
from all.
local government.
House Bill 540 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, a bill to be entitled
State
an
and
act.
local government.
House Bill 601 by Representative Silcox of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act
State
providing
and
for.
local government.
House Bill 620 by Representative Scogins of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act providing for the compensation of the
State
chief
and local
magistrate.
government.
House Bill 621 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act creating the Office of Tax
State
Commissioner.
and local government.
House Bill 623 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled an act placing certain of the county
State and
officers.
local government.
House Bill 624 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled an act creating the Office of Commissioner
State
of
and local
Bartow.
government.
House Bill 631 by Representative Parrish of the 158th, a bill to be entitled an act incorporating in the city of
State and local
Swainsboro.
government.
House Bill 642 by Representative Ridley of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act
State
to
and local
establish.
government.
House Bill 644 by Representative Ridley of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to create the Board of
State and
Elections.
local government.
House Bill 662 by Representative Bruce of the 61st and others, a bill
State
to be
and
entitled
local
an act.
government.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 545 do pass. House Bill 132 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 31 do pass. House Bill 36 do pass. House Bill 138 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hofstetler of the 52nd District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 193 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 80 do pass by substitute. House Bill 91 do pass. House Bill 196 do pass. House Bill 182 do pass by substitute. House Bill 444 do pass. House Bill 508 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. Senate Committee on SLGO has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 227 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 292 do pass. House Bill 265 do pass by substitute. House Bill 532 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Ginn of the 47th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Transportation has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 183 do pass. House Bill 35 do pass by substitute. House Bill 529 do pass. House Bill 524 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dolezal of the 27th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 299 do pass. House Bill 414 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dugan of the 30th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Resolution 115 by Senator James of the 35th and others. Bambola, Apostle, Alexander Oyole. Condolences. Senate Resolution 138 by Senator Butler of the 55th and others. Human Rights Day recognized March 15, 2023. House Bill 76 by Representative Powell of the 33rd and others. Professions and businesses, education, experience, and training requirements for licensure in marriage and family therapy revised provisions. House Bill 77 by Representative Green of 154th and others. Dougherty Judicial Circuit Superior Court provide for a fourth judge. House Bill 120 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others. Motor vehicles standards for issuance of limited driving permits for certain offenders provide. House Bill 139 by Representative Crowe of the 118th and others. Criminal procedure, restrictions of disclosure of personal information of non-sworn employees provisions. House Bill 175 by Representative Daniel of the 117th and others. Motor vehicles, federal regulations regarding safe operation of commercial motor vehicle and carriers, update reference date. House Bill 176 by Representative Gunter of the 8th and others. Courts, increase amount of court reporters' monthly contingent expense and travel allowance. House Bill 186 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd and others. Appeal an error filing of petitions for review and review reviewing courts from lower judiciaries, revise an exception. House Bill 188 by Representative Sains of the 180th and others, Georgia Dangerous Sexual Predator Prevention Act enact. House Bill 327 by Representative Cameron of the first and others, crimes and offenses. Incest includes step-grandparent and step-grandchild relationship. House Bill 373 by Representative Jones of the 60th and others, state holidays, September 11th as First Responders Appreciation Day designate. House Bill 460 by Representative Ballinger of the 23rd and others, courts, child's rights to legal representation and legitimization cases provide. House Bill 509 by Representative Ballinger of the 23rd and others, crimes and offenses, burglary include an act of family violence. House Bill 541 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others, motor vehicles, proper procedure for passing postal service vehicle provide. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It is now time for our morning roll call. Would any senator wish to excuse another senator? Senator from the 31st.
Good morning, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 27th for business inside the Capitol.
Business from inside the Capitol. What was that again? Senator?
27.
27th? Okay. Without objection, the senator from 27th is excused. Senator from the 22nd.
Ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 41st for business outside of the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 41st is excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary, unlock the machine. It is now time for our morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask the doorkeepers to secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 52nd for our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our chaplain of the day. Senator?
Thank you. For do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, courage. Thank you, Mr. President. It's great to have our chaplain here. He was at West Rome High School back in the day when I was over at East Rome High School. He was over there with my wife. They combined them both into Rome High School now, turned one of them into Kmart, one of them into Walmart. That life goes on. But he served in the U.S. Army 82nd Airborne. He was a paratrooper and unit armorer. He went to Covington Seminary School of Theology, and his wife, Teresa, who's right over here with one of our sheriff's deputies, Jimmy Allred, have 5 children and 14 grandchildren. So he is our chaplain for the Floyd County Sheriff Department there, and he's been the senior chaplain emeritus for the Georgia Sheriff's Association Chaplains Division. He also serves Gordon County's Sheriff's Office as their chaplain. Mitch Ralston's the sheriff over there, Dave Robertson in Rome, and the Floyd County Police Department as well, where Chief Mark Wallace is there. He was appointed by Sonny Perdue when he was governor as the Homeland Security Chaplain for the state of Georgia, and he pastors at Essential Church of Rome, which ministers law enforcement And like my dad, both deceased, they were both World War II veterans. His dad, W.C. Thornton, served in World War II. He was part of the D-Day Utah Beach invasion. He stayed on, he was a young guy back then, but he stayed on with the Korean War and the Vietnam War and received 3 Purple Hearts. So he comes from good stock. He's a great man up there to our community, and I welcome our pastor, David Thornton.
Great honor to be here in the Senate today. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, the Senate President, for the honor of being chaplain for the day, and Honorable Chuck Hutsedler, District 52 Senator. I'd like to thank all the senators from the great state of Georgia for the job that you do. I'd like to again thank Sheriff Dave Robertson, the sheriff that I serve with now, my 5th sheriff that I've served under. And my wife, my lovely wife here, Teresa Thornton, is the office manager over pulmonary medicine at Harbin Clinic, so you can imagine her struggles the last few years over COVID. And then one of my dearest friends, Deputy Jimmy Allred, the K-9 handler. And then our dear friend that I serve with, along with Terry Norris, the Executive Director of the Georgia Sheriff Association. I'd like to touch and just for a moment and share basically about a little bit about law enforcement and chaplaincy. The Bible says in Matthew 5:9, it said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the children of God." When you come on our property, there's a large sign on our building that's dedicated to one of our officers that was killed in the line of duty, and we have that on there. So we look at blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the children of God. We look to see what is blessed. Blessed is to invoke divine favor upon asking God to look favorably and express a feel of gratitude or thankful. In the great state of Georgia, we are blessed. A peacemaker is a person who brings about peace, especially reconciling adversaries. So when you look at a law enforcement person, you're looking at a person that is reconciling adversaries that goes into a volatile situation, and they go in and try to, first of all, take care of the situation. And in our law enforcement careers, you know, we have a lot of things that we have to do. I'm called as a chaplain, and I gave Lieutenant Governor Jones, I gave him one of our challenge coins. This is our 25th year as the chaplains division. Our chaplains division in the great state of Georgia is not like other states. They're mandated. We have a training program that we go through. Just got back from that. I told them I was at St. Simon's Island doing our basic training, advanced training. But our chaplains are mandated, and then they go through a year-long training, and then the following year, the second year after, they have a lot of online training. So our chaplains are mandated not only to take care of the emotional needs, the spiritual needs, but the needs of our law enforcement personnel. So I'm called to be a chaplain to minister to law enforcement, public safety, public servants, and then I teach a class on emotional survival. Myself and Joey Meeks, the chaplain from Paulding County, we're kind of a rarity. We're full-time. This is what I do every day when I wake up every morning and work all day long, and many times on the weekends and continuous hours, but we teach emotional survival. In just the last 12 months, myself and him with our CISM teams, which is a critical incident stress management team, we have done debriefings in a lot of your counties and a lot of your jurisdiction, 45 debriefings that we went in and do where law enforcement people have been hurt in the line of duty and or killed, and we go in and debrief. Just in the last few weeks, we had 2 911 dispatchers to pass away, and we go in and debrief with that. So you see, my job as a chaplain is a little bit different than what a pastor would be, and that we go in where law enforcement and public safety people go. I want to give you just a few stats right quick, not a whole bunch, but a few. Line of duty deaths last year in 2022 was 231 line of duty deaths. That's a great figure compared to 2021 when across the nation we had 668 law enforcement killed in the line of duty. But here's the tragedy. Last year, out of 231 people killed in the line of duty, we also had 162 law enforcement people that committed suicide. Law enforcement personnel and the job they do, and when we call them blessed are the peacemakers, for they are called the children of God, they're the ones that come running when everybody else runs away. Sometimes they don't want us there, but when trouble comes, they do want us there. And I look at that and I realize that we have such an astronomical suicide rate that it's my responsibility as a chaplain and individual. I got a dear friend of mine right now as we speak, Mike Williams is one of our canine handlers. It's actually, his canine was a bloodhound that caught tracked two murders. And right now I go every doctor's appointment I go with him, and he's battling throat cancer, and I talk to him each and every day. So you see, as a chaplain, not only do I get in the car and ride with them, I'm their partner, I'm also their prayer partner. I'm also the one that when they're in trouble and they're having trials and tribulations, we do that. When an agency has a line of duty death like we had in Jackson Sheriff's Office, we go in and do counseling. So we look at this figure of last year, in 2021, we had 668 people killed in the line of duty. Now, 474 of them were COVID. Thank God those numbers have come down, and I'm thankful for that. But we look at suicide and we look at emotional trauma that our men and women in law enforcement go through. And I want to give you this challenge. I want to give you this thought. Truly they are, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the children of God. I want to give you a quote from George Washington. That's a pretty good guy, I think. And the quote George Washington made, deeds, not words. You know, I can give you words and I can share words with you, but when we do the deed, in other words, when we out in the trenches and going out and helping out people and doing those things, and as you do here in the Senate, and I'm so thankful for each and every one of you, Democrat, Republican alike, men, women, and each one that's serving here, that we look, George Washington said, deeds, not words. 3 things that prompt men to regularly discharge their duty in times of need. 3 things. Number 1, natural bravery. I look at my father. He was a 3-war veteran, 3 Purple Hearts. He was a machine gunner and came in on D-Day. And I look at the war hero was. I have a brother who's a retired full-bird colonel, medevac chopper pilot. So natural bravery, hope of reward, and then number 3, fear of punishment. That was the words from George Washington, and I'm sure one of our greatest generals, because he had just a merry band of men that overcome Great Britain to become the great country that we are. So I want to just share a few other things right quick. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are called the children of God. My brother, when he was sheriff, I told you I served under 5 sheriffs. One of them was my brother. He had this hanging in his office, and I think this is so true in the legislative bodies, in the Senate, and across the state, as a sheriff or deputy or individual. It says this in Titus chapter 3, verse 1. It reminds me to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work. We are blessed peacemakers and called the children of God when we honor, we pray, and we lift up our lawmakers each day. That is my responsibility. That is each Christian and each person across the state's responsibility, that we pray for the Senate, the House of Representatives, Lieutenant Governor, the Governor, and each and every person across this great state of Georgia. Romans 13:1 says, let every person be subject to governing authorities, for there's no authority except of God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. I want to give you a few closing thoughts. Myself. My duty as a 64-year-old man, and I've been doing this for 36 years, my duty is this. I want to finish strong. I want to finish strong in helping my brothers and sisters that struggle, my brother that's battling cancer, Jimmy Allred, one of my dearest friends here that went through numerous surgeries, and I drove all the way to Tennessee to be by his side. But I want to finish strong, and I know that you want to do that. To my family, to my wife, to my friends and my acquaintances, I want to finish strong, because this is my responsibility as a chaplain, an individual of this great state of Georgia and this nation, to finish strong, because we are a strong nation. We are a strong individual. And to my community, I want to be a light. I want to share that to my community, to the deputies and officers that I serve. I want them to know that I'm there for them. To the state senate of the great state of Georgia and our nation, and unity of fellowship through Christ Jesus our Savior, it says in Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with the right hand of righteousness. I want to say thank you to Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Senate President, to State Senator Honorable Chuck Hustetler, District 52, to all the senators in this state. God's strength, God's speed, and guidance to you all, to Democrat and Republican men and women alike. I pray for you each and every day. It's my responsibility as a peacemaker, and I'd like to ask you if you would to stand where we could go to the Lord in prayer. God, we come to you before the throne of grace and mercy. We thank you for your Son and your Savior, Jesus Christ. We acknowledge you in every aspect of our life and the government throughout the history of our great state and nation. I pray with a heart of love and mercy for each senator in the great state Senate. I pray for Democrats, Republicans, men and women alike. Lord, we pray for the work and the people of this great state of Georgia. In praying, we ask a hedge of protection for all the public service, military, frontline, law enforcement, and all those that serve, whether 911 or whatever they are. We ask God's grace is sufficient for their every need. I pray for our governor, our lieutenant governor, our Senate, the House, and all agencies. We thank you, Jesus, for our saving grace and our Lord, and to his grace I say amen. Thank you again for the opportunity to take a few short words to share, and I'll always go in my heart to be praying for you. God bless.
Yeah, sure. It is always nice to have special guests with us today. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 183 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, a resolution congratulating the Gordon State College Club football Highlanders for winning the 2022 National Club Football Association National Championship and for other purposes. Whereas this magnificent team earned its well-deserved reputation for excellence by performing with courage and precision over months of training and competition, it is abundantly proper to call them champions. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate the Gordon State College Club Football Highlanders for winning the 2022 National Club Football Association National Championship and extend best wishes for their continued success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, we've got the Gordon State football team here that won a national title. Did I understand? All right. Well, Gordon State had a football team years ago, and I was just informed that we got a new football team, and they won the national title here. So, Senator Harbin, or Senator from the 16th, will recognize our special guests and the resolution we have today. Senator?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. We are here this morning today to welcome the Gordon State College football team. The Highlanders recently won the 2002 National Champion Association Championship. The team had an outstanding season and has worked diligently. Today we have with us the president of Gordon College, Dr. Kurt Nooks, and the head football coach, Kevin Adkins, and players Wayne Niles, Christian Lane, and athletic director Tunyon Moore. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm going to give you a resolution, Dr. Nook, and you can, there you go, and we'll give you a second just to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Harbin, to Lieutenant Governor Jones, colleagues in the audience. We just want to thank you for this outstanding recognition. Hopefully, if you don't know where Gordon State College is, we're located in Barnesville, Georgia, about an hour south of here. About 3,100 students are on campus. We are part of the University System of Georgia. We're delighted to be here after 3 years of starting our football team to win the national championship where we beat the division Ohio State University, their team, in the championship. And again, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to be recognized, and thank you for your service.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Y'all. It's nice to have special guests, especially ones who just live right up the road from where I am. Our Rusty Strong, who has been a longtime friend and a person who has been a pillar in the community of Henry County. Glad to have him and his family here with us today. Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 220 by Senator Strickland of the 17th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending the accomplishments of Rusty Strawn as CEO of Strawn & Co. Insurance, an accomplished golfer and a dedicated family man, and for other purposes. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Rusty Strawn for his many achievements, and that the members of this body further recognize and appreciate Rusty Strawn's life achievements as they reflect that of a model Georgian. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Recognize the senator from the 17th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm also joined by my other colleague from Henry County, the senator from the 10th, up here as well. It's our honor to get to recognize Rusty Strawn today. When I read his bio, there's just so many accomplishments, so many that I couldn't do it in the time we have up here. Couldn't mention everything. He has had a very distinguished golf career dating back to the 1980s. But this last year, at the age of 59, he won the U.S. Senior Amateur and the Canadian Senior Amateur Championships back-to-back. And that gives him 10-year exemption to the United States Senior Amateur, the Canadian Senior Amateur, and the British Senior Amateur tournaments. And back home, we all know Rusty as Rusty. Growing up in McDonough, he took on his father's business and continued that legacy with Strawn & Company Insurance in McDonough. He's the CEO of that company and has grown it to 5 locations now across Georgia. And he serves over 8,000 different families and businesses in our state, and they celebrated their 50th anniversary last year in Henry County. He gives back in so many ways to the community that he was raised in, including work with the Boy Scouts of America, with the Flint River Council, and also through his church, McDonough First Baptist Church. It's my honor to get to welcome, introduce to you all, Rusty Strawn.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity. It's obviously a wonderful privilege and an opportunity to be here, and I want to thank Brian Strickland for this opportunity, as well as Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Thank you very much. It's always great to bring 2 national championships, the United States as well as the Canadian championship, to the great state of Georgia, and appreciate that opportunity. It was a wonderful year. But also, it wouldn't have not been possible if I didn't have my wonderful family, which I brought with me today, my wife, Jennifer. Also, my two daughters, Anna and Taylor, and son-in-law, Carson, as well as my sister, and Susan, and also my dad, Norman Strawn, who introduced me to the wonderful game of golf at a very young age. So I'm very thankful and blessed to have them today. But I appreciate this honor and this recognition, and thank y'all very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, what's going on? How are you? All right. We have senators from the 48th has a special guest with us today. Secretary, read the caption, please.
Senate Resolution 125 by Senator Still of the 48th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending the Indian community in the state of Georgia and for other purposes. Whereas the state of Georgia is proud to be home to a vibrant and thriving Indian community whose members have made significant contributions to the state's cultural, social, and economic landscape. And whereas the state of Georgia recognizes and appreciates the valuable contributions of the Indian community, is proud to honor their achievements and recognize their contributions to the state's prosperity. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend the Indian community for their contributions to the state of Georgia, and that sincere best wishes are extended for future health, happiness, and prosperity. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. Recognize the senator from the 48th to speak to our special guest.
Good morning. Thank you, colleagues, please welcome an amazing woman from an amazing country. With us today is the Consulate General of India. Dr. Swati Kulkarni has been with us for 4.5 years in Georgia. This is going to be her last year assigned to Georgia and all that she's done. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Indian community and what it means to us. There are approximately 150,000 people in the United States, in the state of Georgia, from India. About 1% of all Georgians are from India. But they represent 6%. 1% of the people represent 6% of our revenue, of our tax base. So as a people, their output is 6 times that of any other demographic. They are truly a remarkable people. They're hardworking. They're studious. They bring an amazing enrichment to our culture. And I am very honored to have over 80 languages spoken in my district, and that I have the largest concentration of people from India in the 48th. And so they've been incredibly embracing of me, and it's because they share our ideals of democracy, as they just celebrated their 75th anniversary of their Constitution, which is modeled after our very own. So I'm proud to be able to welcome my fellow senators from the greater Atlanta area, especially Fulton, Forsyth, and Gwinnett. And with that, I'm going to ask the senator from the 5th to say a few remarks, who has co-sponsored this resolution with me.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Dr. Kulkarni. And she's Consul General for India, but she's my Consul General because she's part of my family. She's been here 4.5 years since she came to Georgia, and she's been serving Indian community, not only state of Georgia, throughout the Southeast. And I'm a de facto, I guess, state senator for entire state of Georgia, because not only I represent a lot of Indian folks, people from all over the world. So I'm really proud to have her as my Consul General, and I know she'll be leaving Georgia, but she has tremendous, the impression that she put to the Indian community in Georgia is just invaluable. We're going to miss her. She's going to leave soon, but she's always going to be our Consul General from Atlanta in India. So anyway, thank you, and I'm really pleased to honor you at the Senate. Thank you, all my colleagues, to be joining us. Thank you, appreciate it.
My warm greetings to all of you. It's such an honor, such a privilege. In the midst of all honorable senators here, such a honor for me and Lieutenant Governor. So it's a great honor for me, and I feel such a privileged person here today. It's not only me, it's my country which is proud of this. My Indian community who has done so well in this part of the world. As you know, they are very, very hardworking, they are very diligent people, very creative, very dynamic. Most importantly, they are law-abiding. So my community has really built a business here across the spectrum in all the spheres. Last year in Georgia, bilateral merchandise trade between India and Georgia has crossed $6 billion. That's a real big number. It's such a positive achievement, such a welcome development. And I'm sure the Indian community is pushing boundaries between India and Georgia further and further because they are bridge of innovation and enterprise. And Georgia has embraced their hard work, their merit. And I'm really thankful to the state of Georgia for accepting them, for embracing them so beautifully. Again, once again, my warm felicitations to my Indian community out there, and my sincere gratitude to all the senators who have worked behind and their teams for putting this together and honoring us and honoring this beautiful partnership of prosperity. Thank you.
It is my honor to call on the senator from the 9th to introduce our doctor of the day. Senator?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It must be my lucky week. I get to introduce another doctor of the day this week. So I am honored to introduce to you all today Dr. Jonathan Omby. Dr. Jonathan Omby joined the Atlanta Diabetes Associates in 2012. He is a Tennessee native and a graduate of magna cum laude from Lee University. He graduated medical school from the University of Tennessee and completed his internal medicine residency at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. He then moved to Atlanta and completed his endocrinology fellowship at Emory University. Dr. Omby practices general endocrinology and focus on insulin pump management for patients with type 1 diabetes, pituitary tumors, thyroid disease, adrenal disease. As y'all know, insulin legislation has been a priority for me, so this is really an honor for me to introduce him today. He also performs ultrasound-guided thyroid biopsies in his office. His research findings have been well published in well-known medical journals and works as an investigator and sub-investigators in multiple clinical trials currently active within the practice. He is presented before annual meetings of the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists and travels to educate other doctors regarding new emerging endocrine therapies. In 2014, he was honored by being chosen to become part of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, that's JDRF, an initiative in recognition of his accomplishments in community, educational, and networking activities. This distinction also recognizes his efforts in creating awareness of cutting-edge research supported by JDRF in hopes of finding a cure for type 1 diabetes. He is also not afraid to be an advocate for his patients. When insurers don't want to cover essential medicines or devices, he has been interviewed by news media and reached out to lawmakers to be sure that his patients' voices are heard. So I introduce you all today to Dr. Jonathan Omby.
Thank you. It is a great honor to serve you guys today as Doctor of the Day. especially as an endocrinologist and diabetes specialist, since today is Type 1 Diabetes Day here at the Capitol. Please be sure to read the information that we've given to you regarding Type 1 diabetes at your desk. And if you have any questions about the treatment or how we deal with Type 1 diabetes, feel free to come down to clinic and talk to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Good job. Good job, Don. Good job. Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 27th, the golden elephant himself.
Mr. President, I was a little late on my button, but I would like to ask unanimous consent that House Bill 505 be withdrawn from the Committee on Rules and be committed
It's not the appropriate time, Senator.
Wonderful.
But
I apologize.
we will get to you when it is that time. Appreciate your eagerness, though, Senator. Senator from the 8th, you'd like to rise on a point of personal privilege?
I'm going to try to make this quick, Mr. President, but colleagues, I know that all of y'all know me pretty well, and you know I'm not a zealot. You know, I have just as good a relationships with folks on the Democratic side as I do the Republican side. If I'm a zealot for anything, I'm a zealot for the farmer and a zealot for rural Georgia. And I don't deny that. As a matter of fact, it's something that I'm proud of. But there's been an issue that's been going on with truck weights, and we had a Transportation Committee hearing this morning. Of course, we know that it's passed out of the House. Had a call this morning. My son, who's went to go stay with one of his pledge brothers down in Cairo, got a call from Tracy Walden. Tracy's a logger. His dad's Donald. They log in Grady County. His wife is Janet. She's assistant school superintendent. And he called me and he said, Russ, he said, I hope it's all right. He said, JR gave me your number. He said, I hear that there's, something going on with this truck weights bill. And he said, it means a lot to us. And I just wanted to see if you knew anything about it. And I kind of chuckled. I said, yes, sir. I said, I'm about neck deep in it, But there's a member of the legislature here who, when we look at where we're at with agriculture, H2A, I think the raise increase just went up 14% in 1 year. When you look at some of the regulations, there's a member of this body here who just got fined $5,000 from Wage and Hour because one of his buses, the reverse light on one side was out. He was fined $1,400 because his dumpster was 85 feet from his housing instead of 100 feet. And he's competing against a country where they have $1 an hour labor. So you look at where we're at in truck weights around us for ag and forestry. In Alabama, you can haul 88,000 pounds. In Florida, you can haul 88,000 pounds. In Tennessee, you can haul 88,000 pounds. In North Carolina and South Carolina, you can haul 90,000 pounds. What are we saying to these agribusiness folks, these loggers? What do I say to Tracy Walden when he calls me this morning? I get asked to vote for a lot of things in here that I don't always like to vote for from some of my friends in the urban areas. But rural Georgia needs this. Rural Georgia needs it. And I just ask that my colleagues in this body help me make it happen. With that, Mr. President, I yield the will.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 11th, like to rise on point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you didn't know it, today is the American Hat Company Day at the Capitol. This is American cowboy hat. It is the most recognized piece of clothing in the world. and it represents the values and traditions of the American cowboy. And we're honored to have the president of the American Hat Company, Keith Monday, here with us today, and his sales assistant and associate, Mark Monday. They're going to be over at the Department of Agriculture the rest of the day, and you can get your own American cowboy hat and take it home with you. So I hope you'll go see them, and thank you for being here today and for what you do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none. The resolution on the consent calendars are adopted. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I recognize the senator from the 27th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that House Bill 505 be withdrawn from the Committee on Rules and be committed to the Committee on Judiciary.
Senator from the 27th has asked for unanimous consent for HB 505 be withdrawn from Committee of Rules and recommitted to Committee on Judiciary. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 505 by Representative Chokas of the 151st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 161130 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to riot so as to provide for a felony penalty, to amend Code Section 1761 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to when offenses, bailable procedure, schedule of bails, and appeal bonds so as to include the offense of riot. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the senator from the 27th's motion? Without objection, HB 505 will be taken from rules and recommitted to judiciary. So, recognize senator from the 35th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that SB 125 be withdrawn from the Committee on State and Local Government Operations and be committed to the Committee on Urban Affairs.
Senator has moved that SB 125 be withdrawn from the Committee of State and Local Government and recommitted to the Committee of Urban Affairs. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 125 by Senator James of the 35th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated regarding landlord and tenant in general so as to repeal Code Section 44.7.19 relating to restrictions on rent regulation by local governments. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator has moved that SB 125 be taken from state and local government and moved, recommitted to urban affairs. Senator from the 47th, what purpose do you rise?
I'd like to object.
Like to object? All right. Senator has objected to the motion. Would you like to speak to the motion? Huh. East side has 3 minutes. Would you like to speak to the motion? She's waived. You're waived. All those in favor of the motion either signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 47th, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this bill is better suited for local government and state and local government?
The chairman of state and local governments.
That all of our members go red on this vote?
The chairman of state and local government knows best what's just for committee. Senator from the 35th, what purpose do you rise?
Isn't it true that this bill has a lot of people who want to listen? Oh, it's too late. They wanted to listen to a hearing on this bill of the rising cost of rent throughout Georgia.
Senator's passionate about our bill. On the motion, the yeas are 23, the nays are 33, and this motion has failed. And it will stay in its Committee of State and Local Government. You have before you a consent calendar of local bills. Mr. Secretary, have you had any objections been filed to any of the bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, no objections have been filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to report of the Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bill of local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Questions on the passage of the bill of the local consent calendar? All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 55 and the nays are 0. This bill having the local consent calendar having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. It is always a pleasure to have one of our statewide elected officials here. We have the Honorable Jason Shaw here with our Public Service Commission. Obviously, the commissioner is a dear friend, and he has obviously served a long time in the House of Representatives. And even though he was on that other side, other chamber, he was always good to his senators, and we appreciate that. And he's doing a great job as one of our public service commissioners. So I'm gonna yield the floor to you for a little bit here,
wow.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Governor. Good to be with y'all. Thank y'all for everything you do for our state, and please don't ever hesitate to call us. We're just right across the street if we can ever do anything, but thank y'all for what y'all are doing, and it's good to see so many good friends, and appreciate y'all very much. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. Good to see you. I recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the following bills and resolutions be engrossed. House Bill 162, House Bill 311, House Bill 482, and House Resolution 66.
The senator has moved that House Bill 162, House Bill 311, House Bill 482, and House Resolution 66 be engrossed. Secretary, read the captions.
House Bill 162 by Representative McDonald of the 26th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to income taxes so as to provide for a one-time tax credit for individual taxpayers who filed income tax returns for both the 2021 and 2022 taxable years. House Bill 311 by Representative Smith of the 70th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to general provisions regarding ad valorem taxation of property so as to provide for optional temporary tax relief to certain properties located in nationally declared federal disaster areas. House Bill 482 by Representative Saines of the 180th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes so as to provide for clarification with respect to an income tax credit for establishing or relocating quality jobs, to provide that the definition of taxpayer. House Resolution 66 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a resolution ratifying Governor Brian P. Kemp's executive order suspending the collection of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection? Is objection? Would you like to speak to the motion? Each side will get 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. As with tradition, we always engross the bills that come through Finance and Ethics Committee. These bills, 3 of the bills came through the Finance Committee with good, healthy debate, bipartisan debate, and they were perfected in that committee. And the 4th issue is a resolution, House resolution dealing with tax credits, dealing with the executive order on motor fuel tax. And it too was debated in committee with a bipartisan input. So I ask for your support to engross these 4 measures, and we'll move on with the other items in the calendar. I'll yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, would you like to speak, or you want the senator from the 22nd? You'll speak. Minority Leader, you'll speak.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Now, you just heard the majority leader say that they always engross these finance bills. And I say that the Senate Republicans are continuing their past behavior by engrossing bills and preventing amendments or improvements to bills that could potentially become good for the people of the state. There are good ideas in the Democratic caucus, and the process should remain open for all of our participation, not just in committee, but on the Senate floor as well. Continuing this tradition of preventing Democratic participation on the Senate floor should not be the way we operate under the Gold Dome. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make that known that the Senate Democratic Caucus do have good ideas, and we can make better decisions than we sometimes make if everybody participates. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield well.
Thank you, Senator. The majority leader has moved that the bills of HB 162, HB 311, HB 482, and HR 66 be engrossed. The minority party has objected. All those in favor of the majority leader's motion will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion of engrossment, the yeas are 32 and the nays are 22, and these bills have been engrossed. Moving on to the rules calendar. Start with House Bill 440. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 440 by Representative Stoner of the 40th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to student health in elementary and secondary education so as to authorize public and private schools to stock a supply of undesignated ready-to-use glucagon. This Committee of the Senate on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 28th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of this body. I rise today to present you HB 440. And I present you HB 440 today on Type 1 Diabetes Awareness Day. And the senator from the 9th has placed this on your desk. I saw her hand placing them herself. And just a quick little lesson here. Type 1 diabetes is a daily chronic condition where your pancreas stops producing insulin. And so whether you call it diabetes, diabetes, or diabetes, we can all recognize that it's a debilitating disease that is rampant through our state and our nation. And so it's our job as public officials to make sure that our children stay safe, make sure that our teachers and our educators have all the tools that they need to keep our children safe. And so this bill simply allows public and private schools to acquire and stock a supply of undesignated ready-to-use glucagon. We already allow them to stock EpiPens, albuterol, and Narcan, and we're simply adding this to that list so again that our children can stay safe, because as we know, children tend to lose things. I've got 3 and they lose their shoes daily. And should they ever develop type 1 diabetes, I would want their teachers to have the ability to save them. And so that's all this bill does, and I will yield for questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration for HB 440. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to rise to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to report the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill. Senator from the 6th, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 7th.
Without objection, Senator from the 7th is excused. Senator from the 31st, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 45th.
Without objection, Senator from the 45th is excused. All right. On the passage of the bill, all those in favor of the bill vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 56 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Masterful job, Senator. It was all in the delivery. You even got the senators to come back that excuse themselves to vote. Moving on, HB 402. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 402 by Representative Hilton of the 48th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to health of elementary and secondary school students so as to require public schools and local school systems to provide water safety education information upon initial enrollment to parents and guardians of students under 18 years of age. The Committee of the Senate on Education and Youth recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 48th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 402 from the state rep from the 48th, not to be confused with the senator from the 48th. So that's a nice coincidence for the two of us. This is the Edna Mae McGovern Act. Edna Mae McGovern was a little girl in Florida who drowned in her backyard swimming pool. And as tragic as that is, it's a statistic that we hear all too often. Drowning, as we've learned in this chamber already this year, is the leading cause of death for young children. And this bill, in its intent and its purpose, is to elevate what the senator from the 23rd brought us with Izzy's law. This is a step in a similar direction. And what it does is it promotes swimming education in our school systems. It does not come at any cost to our state. It is all the literature, all the programming is funded by a program called Every Child a Swimmer. And as a fun fact to that, I was the high school ambassador to Every Child a Swimmer in 1988. And the very first kid that worked on this bill in the state of Florida that led to swimming instruction being a requirement for graduation in high school in the state of Florida. It's still a great program going today. And so the Edna Mae McGovern Act is a step in that direction to help promote swimming education in our state of Florida. It's an honor to carry this bill. Representative Hilton did a great job with it, and I ask your favorable consent to support it as well. And with that, I will yield for any questions.
You do have one question. Senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield?
I do, sir.
I'd like to first say, is it not true that this bill is a continuation of ongoing efforts to ensure that all children in Georgia are safe as they take swimming lessons?
Sir, that is exactly what this bill is
And is it
designed
not
for.
true that I fully support this bill?
I hope you do. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You have no questions, Senator.
I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Senator from the 20th, you wish to rise? What purpose?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
The senator exited the well quickly, and I'm slow on the uptake. Is this a mandatory requirement for our school districts? Is this a new mandate?
The senator would have to talk to the author of the bill on that. But it is a question that's probably worth having with him.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
We've got a late approaching amendment. Was that you, Senator from the 20th, with that late amendment? I'm kidding. No, it's the senator from the 29th. I'm kidding. Secretary, read the caption.
Senator Robertson of the 29th offers the following amendment, Amendment 1, to amend House Bill 402 by changing the shall on line 17 to a may. That completes the order, Mr. President.
I recognize the senator from the 29th speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that is on line 19. Colleagues, this is one of those difficult times that we have to step up here, and I've spoken to I've spoken to a couple of senators this session about these types of legislation and how important it is, water safety in a state like Georgia. And the great responsibility that comes with being a parent with small children. And as many of you know, sometimes it surprises some people that someone that whose hair's the color of mine and who is as worn as I look is the father of a 4-year-old daughter who has taken swimming lessons since the first summer of her life on this planet. Because of the fear I have of my daughter getting near water and not knowing what to do. But also, as my colleagues in my caucus know, how I have pointed out repeatedly how we continue to overburden our public school systems with mandates. And every time there is a bill to give parents the choices to move their children into other schools through vouchers or whatever, we always get this tremendous pushback from the public school system saying we have a problem because y'all require that we do so much and we need more money and there's not room in the budget to give people the opportunities to have school choice. So all I'm doing, I think this is important. I would encourage the schools in the district that I live in to offer this type of stuff because the senator is correct. There is no cost as far as the literature goes. It's a partnership between the school district and a very reputable group that comes in and does this. All I ask is that those schools that do not have the resources, particularly the human resources, to hand out the material and put the emphasis that's necessary. So that's the reason I asked that the shall be changed to a may, to alleviate a little bit of pressure off some of the smaller school systems on this and any other attempted mandate that we try to do. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well if there are no questions.
You do have a question, Senator. Senator from the 23rd.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, I will yield to my friend from the 23rd.
I note that on lines 22 of the bill, is it not true that this information can be provided in either electronic or hard copy form? Is that correct, Senator?
It can be.
So that electronic dissemination of this information would you agree, would not create an undue burden?
I would agree that it should not, and that's the reason I think that by putting the may there and based on the subject matter, I absolutely don't believe that there would be any legitimate push from a school district in Georgia to refuse to do this. I just think when we put legislation out mandating that our schools do anything, we need to do that on extremely rare occasions, because as we've all known, we've looked at the evolution of public schools from the time that they were first created until today, and we see continuously what we know to be well-intended acts continue to overburden our schools. But if our schools want to use it to direct individuals to the digital source of this information, I think they have a right to choose to do that.
Thank you. Would Senator yield for one more question?
Absolutely.
Would you agree that if this bill passes and it saves one child's life, it would be valuable?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'd
Thank you.
urge you to consider
Thank
Senate
you.
bill as it is.
Thank you.
Senator from the 48th.
Senator, do you yield?
I absolutely yield.
I appreciate and understand your perspective on this. This was very carefully vetted with the Board of Education folks, with countless school systems around Georgia. Is that? I guess just asking for your amendment. Was this cross-checked with any of those same groups that they might agree with that?
It was not. It was through a conversation with myself and a couple of my colleagues who know my standings on the mandates to school districts. And I will point out that the school districts that vetted it, while I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, these are the same school districts that when we attempt to do school choice legislation, they come back and their primary complaint is we already overburden them with so much responsibility and funding requirements that any deviation from that, such as vouchers or school choice, would cripple our public school system. So I feel that the proper thing to do is to start throttling back these mandates. And again, I don't know of any school district in the state of Georgia that would not take a may and implement this program because of what you said, that this is a partnership with the schools and an outside agency that you have been an ambassador for in bringing the information in there. I just think at some point we have to start replacing those shalls when it comes to responsibilities on the school districts of these additional programs beyond reading, writing, arithmetic, computer skills, and science, and start putting the opportunity for the school to elect to do it or to elect not to do it based on what they feel they can handle.
Senator, do you yield for one more
I
question?
continue to yield.
For even something as critical as drowning prevention, you think that if school systems have an obligation, a requirement to at least distribute free information, you see that as being something that would be overburdensome?
What I see is a pattern, and there was a word you used in there, I believe, obligated. The obligation, and I certainly didn't want this to be a contentious discussion, but I knew that this being such a hypersensitive particular case, that it would most likely become that. But our concern is the obligation for Anderson Naomi to be a good swimmer and to be made aware of water safety and everything else rests 100% in the hands of me, her father, along with her mother. But I would never, I would always be happy if the school she attends did offer information on this and supported her parents in trying to teach her water safety. But what I do have a concern with is that we continue, and Senator, you're well aware of the information and stuff. You and I have had those conversations, and we've looked at the same material. I'm just concerned that we continue to mandate that the schools do this. And please understand, I stepped up here today on this particular legislation understanding that I'm going to be the bad guy. But I think that sometimes that is a sacrifice worthwhile if we can at least move forward in redefining reminding everyone what the responsibility of our public schools are, because you and I both know that every time we attempt to do anything, our phones blow up, our emails blow up from superintendents and everybody else saying they're overworked, underpaid, overburdened. And so we have to stop giving them the ammunition to attack us when we try to put the responsibility of education back in the hands of mothers and fathers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Senator from the 50th, like to rise for a question.
Does the senator yield?
I do.
Is it not true that you and I both care deeply about the safety of children in this state?
Absolutely. I know that the senator and I share the love of our daughters beyond measure, and that we care about the safety of all children in Georgia.
And isn't it true, we typically agree on most things, but on this one we may disagree.
We may disagree.
This particular amendment.
We may disagree, and I think that's probably the fact that I've spent a career serving and protecting the community, and my dear brother is a trial attorney.
Well, I do thank you for your service. Is it not true that you stated you don't like to force mandates on schools?
Yes, beyond the core educational responsibilities of preparing our students to be able to go out and become productive citizens, hard workers, and good men and women here in the state of Georgia.
How do you distinguish sending home water safety or sending an email with a drill that happens at a school that we're mandating them now to have?
Well, the water safety, and I think in the bill it talks about that the school is not required to do swimming lessons or anything else that would occur there on campus. The fact of emergency drills and things of that nature fall into the same category. The responsibility the school has of having fire extinguishers in certain locations, having certain first aid required at the campuses. What we're doing here is, I believe, is we are talking about an extremely important subject matter that the primary responsibility rests in the hands of the mother and father of those children. And I think if schools want to provide those, working with the organization that my fellow senator was an ambassador for, I think that's fine if they want to volunteer and do that. This is one of those things where I do not think they should be mandated to do that and continue to pile on that huge, or to throw onto that huge pile of things that we currently mandate them to do that is beyond the scope of traditional education.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Recognize Senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you yield.
I do.
Senator, I understand what you're changing here. It looks like you're just changing the shall to may on line 19, correct?
That's correct.
I have a question.
Is this what it feels like?
If we did not do that and we required the school systems to provide this information, and because of, as you've already said, the plethora of other information we require the schools to provide or teach, if they miss this one and they don't provide it, does that leave them open to suit?
I think there's an opportunity. I think in some cases, and your profession would better understand that than mine, but I think it does open them to the opportunity of, I know they do have quite a bit of immunity within the school district, but I think once we mandate something, I think it puts a responsibility on them that even if it would not be able to be upheld in a court of law, I think the scrutiny and the unbearable court of public opinion would overwhelm the school district on this particular issue when their focus should be on the job of educating our children.
Thank you for helping me understand that better.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Senator from the 6th.
Colleagues, I'll keep this brief. I appreciate the senator from the 29th and his amendment, and I appreciate the fact that he's raising the concern around mandates on our local public school systems. And as a former public school board member, I can tell you that the mandates that come from this body that don't relate to academics, that don't relate to children being able to read and to graduate on time, are a burden on school systems, and I appreciate him raising that. I wish that energy was brought yesterday with the bill that was considered, but I hope moving forward we continue to bring that energy and this discussion about engaging our public school systems and ensuring that the mandates that are coming from this body are taking focus away from what really matters, which is whether kids are graduating school ready for college and career. So I just want to appreciate the discussion, and I'll yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Do you still wish to speak, Senator from the 31st? Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Senator from the 48th, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate and I love the senator from the 29th. However, for the first time ever, I believe that I'm publicly disagreeing with him on a very small matter, and I understand his passion, and I understand the reasons why. But when you look at line 19, there's also another shall at line 22, line 23, 27, and 28. And it says in line 28, and if you read with me, nothing in this code section shall be construed to require public schools or local systems to provide water safety education courses or swimming lessons, or to excuse students from all or part of any school day to attend water safety education courses or swimming lessons. What we are trying to do, folks, is make sure kids can swim. I don't think this is an undue burden. I ask your favorable support. Thank you, and I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Question is on the adoption of Amendment 1 by the senator from the 29th. Is there objection to adoption of Amendment 1? I was wondering when it was coming. There is objection to adoption of Amendment 1 from the senator of the 29th. All those in favor of Amendment 1 signify by voting the yay switch. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the adoption of the amendment, the yeas are 14, the nays are 41, and this amendment has failed. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Moving on, House Bill 85. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 85 by Representative Cooper of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to general provisions regarding insurance so as to require health benefit policy coverage for biomarker testing if supported by medical and scientific evidence. The Committee of the Senate on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 32nd. And Senator, I want you to know that once we pass this bill today, this will be the same amount of bills that have been passed in the House, Senate bills that have been passed in the House today. So we're gonna far exceed what the House has done with our bills up to this point. So just wanted to duly note that for all our House members in here.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 85 is about biomarker testing. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States and also one of the most costly to treat. And I would bet that there are people in this chamber that have been impacted by that diagnosis. Upon receiving a diagnosis, the next step is to formulate a treatment plan. New targeted therapies for cancer and other diseases are becoming available, and biomarker testing is a way to determine which treatment path is appropriate, saving time and money for people with serious diseases that require quick action. The testing is either a blood test or a tissue sample. Biomarker testing can avoid treatments that are likely to be unsuccessful and therefore can save money and lives. This bill is about the lab test, not the treatment. It requires coverage of the test when it is indicated by nationally recognized scientific evidence, FDA approved, and medically necessary. It also provides guidelines for prior authorization of the test and an appeal process for denials. This bill will help many Georgians with cancer and other serious diseases to avoid ineffective treatments and will save lives. Be happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from 20, for what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry. Mr.
State your
President.
inquiry.
Isn't it true I'd be much more likely to vote for this bill if I knew the cost?
The senator is very wise in his questioning. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 47, the nays are 5. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senator from the 26th, I'd probably take you up on that motion if this wasn't a tax cutting bill coming up right now. But moving on the calendar, House Bill 162.
House Bill 162 by Representative McDonald of the 26th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to income taxes so as to provide for a one-time tax credit for individual taxpayers who filed income tax returns for both the 2021 and 2022 taxable years. The Committee of the Senate on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the Senator from the 3rd to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring you a good bill. Bring before you on behalf of the governor House Bill 162 to provide a tax credit for Georgian taxpayers who have filed returns for both 2021 and 2022 taxable years. This bill is about getting state dollars back into the pockets of hardworking Georgians rather than letting the money stay at the state level. This will total about $1 billion, and it comes from our record high budget surplus. That surplus is a result of both the governor's efforts to be the first to reopen our economy and all of our efforts here in this House and in the other House to conservatively manage our state budget. The bill mirrors last year's refund legislation, House Bill 1302, with one minor revision, and that is to the definition of an eligible qualified taxpayer. This bill includes dependents with a tax liability, that is high schoolers or college students who worked in 21 and 22 with taxable income. They will be eligible to claim this refund as a single filer. Excuse me. Like last year, the bill provides a maximum refund of $250 for single filers, $375 for head of household filers, and $500 for married couples filing jointly based on their 2021 taxable year filing status. They will receive these refunds provided they paid at least the same amount in taxes. If they didn't pay the same amount, they will get credited back what they did pay. For qualified taxpayers to receive this refund on their 2022 returns, all they must do is file their returns for the 21 and 22 taxable years. Mr. President, I'll yield for questions.
You have no questions, Senator. Senator has yielded the well. Senator from the 14th, do you wish to speak to the measure?
Thank you, Mr. President, and once again, we find ourselves caught in the space between an easy political talking point and good governance. Now, full disclosure, I'm voting for this bill. And the reason I'm voting for this bill is because our voters expect our surpluses to get returned to them when they reach these levels. But the reason that they expect that is because we have not created a culture of fully sustaining good government at the state level in the state of Georgia. I think if we had an opportunity to sit down with our voters, more so than the 30 seconds it takes to glance at political mail, throw it in the trash, quick hit on 11 Alive to discuss, good government, taxpayer relief, if we had more than those 30 seconds to talk to our voters, and we talked about what we see every day in this building, going through the process of hearing from different groups, like pre-K teachers who make in the 40,000s with a master's degree, or less than that, even as lead teachers without masters, teachers in the $30,000 range caring for our kids in their most formative years, or our prisons, which are exacerbating gang violence by way of understaffing. We don't have correctional officers making more than 30, 40K a year, who are scared to go into dorms because they themselves could be killed by violence inside. We have such a critical understaffing problem in so many areas of government and a competitiveness problem vis-a-vis the private sector. Our government is starved and has been starved for a number of years. And I think one of the things that's frustrating for members of the minority who speak out on issues like workforce, this year housing, workforce housing specifically, but just the need for us to be competitive, is that these problems were on the horizon a decade ago. You know, all the things that Governor Kemp rightly identified in his inauguration speech as priorities for our budgeting, for our process, these are issues that have been around the corner. We have heard the canaries in the coal mine for some time. So I think what's frustrating for members of the minority especially, but hopefully some of you also privately in the majority, is by not dealing with these problems as they arise, we end up in this situation where $1 billion that could be used to address one of many critical problems in state government that come up in our appropriations hearings over and over again, we have to send it right back. Because we've created a culture and an expectation among our voters, like, for example, maybe an office budget, that if you don't use the whole thing, it gets returned to the mainframe. We have created a culture of not using our budget to sustain government in the most basic ways, to ensure good government, ensure responsive services for all our citizens. So, you know, there's some political theory about the minority being the conscience of the majority or something like that. I guess all I'm trying to do today by coming up here is say, yeah, let's do this. Let's give tax relief to voters who expect it, but let's not forget our longer term and more solemn obligation to make sure that government works and that it works at the most basic level. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
You do have a question, Senator.
Okay, sure. I'll answer questions. Thank you.
Senator from the 56.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the Senator yield?
I do.
Senator, isn't it true that Georgia had a lot of one-time income that wouldn't necessarily be reoccurring year over year?
I think that's true because obviously we have a lot of federal pass-through money. But one thing that you can't deny is that the economy came whirring back after the original COVID problems, and a lot of the tax revenues we're seeing come from economic activity that exceeded projections. I think, you know, some of the projections that we're using I think the governor's office is using to construct the budget that project a downturn after the COVID years are not necessarily the most objective projections. I mean, the Carl Vinson Institute at Georgia, regularly advises on issues like this. The Terry College of Business at Georgia has its own projections about economic activity that exceed the governor's expectations. And so I think, you know, the narrative that this was a one-time blip just based on federal funding is borne out in some of the spending that we've been able to do. But the reality is that state revenues are up in a way that enables us to think more fundamentally about how we can support the functions of state government.
Senator, will you further yield?
I will.
Senator, isn't it true that we have looked at these numbers many occasions and up to $4 billion of that was considered to be one-time money? And while we've had an increase in Georgia's economy because Governor Kemp led the entire nation by opening up our state, we've had great conservative budget policy, doesn't mean that that money is going to come back. And isn't it more prudent to give it back to the taxpayers rather than have us in a deficit the very next year?
Well, there are other tools. It's not so one-dimensional. I mean, for example, my understanding is that there's a bond ceiling of, I think, 10% or something like that we could be using, and we're only about half of our excuse me, sorry, what was that? Could you yell it? Yeah, thanks. But no, I mean, our capacity as a state to issue bonds, we're definitely not at the capacity for that. We're about halfway there. There are critical investments we could be making. I just named a couple possibilities of the areas where we could be. But there are a lot of revenue tools, and I have not had the opportunity to sit on an appropriations committee or let alone chair one, and I understand there's a lot of information that comes before you when you serve in that capacity. But some of this stuff is just kind of common sense. I think if you ask voters, are teachers underpaid, they'll say yes. Right? If they know what teachers do in the classroom, how much responsibility they bear. And so, you know, if the answer to are our teachers paid enough is just to say, oh, well, it's all kind of technical, it was a one-time influx of, you know, federal ARPA money and we're never going to see that money again, I think most voters would find that to be an unsatisfying answer.
Senator, another question if
Sure.
you yield.
I do.
If you ask voters the same question, do they think they're being taxed too much and they should get their money back, wouldn't you agree they'd say yes?
And that's actually my point. I mean, the reason I came up to the well today is to say that we've created a culture of telling voters that we're funding government enough. I mean, we are in these positions. I've talked before about being small R Republicans, that we have the responsibility to communicate with our voters the special information we're able to receive in this building. And I think we know from going to these hearings that we're not funding government at the most basic level. So part of our responsibility is to create a culture where we inform voters that we need more skin in the game and that we're not doing enough at the most basic level. We shouldn't have a system where voters only realize that we're underfunding government once they show up and realize that the service they're looking for is inadequate. We want them to be civically educated that we need to be using moments like this where we have surplus to close some of these gaps in our basic government.
Will you yield for one final question?
I'll yield as long as you would like to ask questions, seatmate.
One final one will be fine. Thank
Sure.
you. I appreciate your comments today, even though we know Georgia's the #1 place to live, work, play, and
For
raise a
900 years
family,
straight.
And people are moving up there, moving it here at record pace. But the final question to you is, yesterday we talked a lot about opting out of things. I think several people in your party were concerned about that. So would you feel more comfortable if you could opt out and not take your tax refund back?
Well, I think that would be a more appropriate question if I were going to vote against the bill, but I am supporting the measure today. I think my point is that, the reason that I'm supporting the measure is to reflect the fact that we have created a political culture in which this type of thing is expected. And I want to be responsive to my voters who are saying, I want the tax relief, you guys have gone over budget. My point is we need to do a better job of educating our voters that we are not experiencing some, crazy surplus where that money can't be used for useful things, right? We need to be educating them that this money does need to go towards filling holes in government, which I've now said 7 times, and I apologize for being redundant. And so I guess my point is, that takes all of us to change that culture collectively. Thank you, Senator.
You have no questions, Senator.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Recognize Senator from the 42nd to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise today to highlight the disconnect between rebates and one-time givebacks in the budget and our priorities, our values. While many in Georgia are in need, dire need in some instances, others are doing just fine. The individuals for whom it would mean the most are not included in the legislation that is before us right now. Many of us in this body have supported the Georgia version of a earned income tax credit, which is available at the federal level and has been for many decades, which here is called the Georgia Work Credit, legislation that's been pending for a number of years. Right now, it is pending in the form of Senate Bill 118 and companion legislation over in the House, the number I don't have handy. If we passed a Georgia Work Credit, we would join 34 other states with a tax cut geared toward lower income and middle class working Georgians. We would reward work for those who are working but still live paycheck to paycheck. Some individuals who would benefit under SB 118 from a Georgia Work Credit will receive some funds under this particular piece of legislation that is pending right now, but those who don't owe state income tax because they earn too little despite working full-time will not see any money from this bill. If you earn enough to owe $25 in state income tax, you will get your $25 back. But the more you have had to pay, the more you get back, despite any reference to need or economic boost, which is especially true when you figure in the fact that those that are working but earn too little, as I just said, to owe state income taxes do not see any benefit from this bill. These are the very folks for whom a tax rebate is the most meaningful. It boosts family fortunes the most and the economy the most. For others, seeing some of the money from this bill is meaningful, but certainly not life-changing. It will not pay for a week of childcare for a little one under 4 years old. It will not go far in helping pay the rent, the electric bill, car repairs, or medical expenses. Meanwhile, I ask you, what does $250 or $500 do in the pocket of those who are already very comfortable? It's barely noticeable. Maybe some individuals will treat themselves to a night out or to event tickets. Budgets speak volumes about our values. We will always have more needs than we have the resources to fund them, and there are many competing priorities. How those decisions are made are a reflection of the priorities held within the walls of this Capitol. It reveals everything about what is most important to us. Tax relief is appropriate as a priority. Here I'm echoing the senator from the 14th, but as part of a well-balanced set of priorities. And our set of priorities is still out of balance. As I've said many times already this session from this well, we have a literacy problem here in Georgia. Other states, like Mississippi, fully funded a comprehensive program back in 2013 to address their low literacy rates and are seeing stellar results, while we continue to let our students down despite welcome recent steps in the right direction. But the funding is not there yet. Critical early educational programming that builds the foundation for a lifetime of literacy success needs more funding. Right now, as a matter of fact, we need $20 million additional in state funding in the upcoming budget for the CAPS program. That's the Joint Federal State Childcare, High Quality Childcare Program, or else 18,000 fewer children will receive high quality childcare this year than last year. Right now as well, thousands are about to lose Medicaid with the Medicaid unwinding. Yet our state remains among the worst in the nation for both healthcare access and maternal mortality. We claim we value our children, and I have no doubt that each one of us puts our own children and grandchildren first in our homes. But are we doing this collectively? Could we do it better? What priorities are front and center in our upcoming budget that we should be keeping front of mind in these budgetary conversations? Many of our constituents will have a personal choice to make with what they do with the funds the state returns to them through this piece of legislation, HB 162. I actually happen to have a number of constituents here today advocating with a group called Presbyterians for a Better Georgia. They called me out to the ropes and sent me little page forms where they wrote down what they want me to be working on behalf of, what they are specifically advocating for here today in the halls. They asked me to, and I quote, support better permanent housing and services for the homeless, the mentally ill, and low-income folks. My suggestion for the tax rebate you may receive under this legislation is to consider your own priorities. If you don't need these funds to make ends meet, perhaps consider giving some or all of it to someone who does. And I hope that as we continue through our budgetary conversation, we do a little bit better to balance our set of priorities, to include funding that is desperately needed to even set the stage for the success of the private sector, infrastructure, education, along with tax relief. Thank you, Mr. President. If I have no questions, I'll yield the well. Okay. I'll hang then.
Senator, you do have a question.
Great.
Senator from the 55th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, will you yield for a question that I have that could have made this bill a better bill?
To the minority leader, of course I will yield.
Is it not true that what we call the Georgia Work Credit, same as earned income tax credit makes the elementary and middle school students whose family receive this credit better in their schoolwork. And it happens in their test scores in the very first year that they receive the credit.
That is true. So the Georgia Work Credit, and thank you for asking, I'll just elaborate on that a little bit more. Those who serve in Senate Finance have heard me and others talk a lot about the Georgia Work Credit over the years, and we have had bipartisan support for a Georgia Work Credit. So this is policy that has been around at the federal level for a number of decades, expanded under President Reagan, heavily supported by Paul Ryan when he was still in Congress. And it is because it rewards work, and so the more you are working, the more you can receive within the Georgia Work Credit. I already stated as part of my remarks that 34 states already have a state version of the work credit. We are among a small number that do not. And the sad thing about this legislation is the Georgia Work Credit is so impactful in its results. Minority Leader Butler just mentioned one of the research-based benefits. I mean, the benefits of a work credit for all these decades of research have been nothing short of truly impressive, from two-generation solutions where families climb the economic ladder, children do better in school, the children have higher lifetime earnings, cuts down violence in communities. The benefits really go on, which is, of course, why 34 states have already adopted it. And I just want to raise that and thank you, Leader, for your question, because it's really a shame that in this legislation, none of those good benefits to those folks that are working hard but are really just right on the bubble, where they basically work but do not earn enough to owe state income tax, are just not benefited. And that would be incredibly impactful if they were, and I certainly wish they could have been included as part of this legislation.
Senator Furtherhill?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, is it not true that this is one of those good ideas that Democrats have that could have been incorporated in this bill had it not been engrossed?
I think the lady knows of what she speaks. And again, it is not just a Democratic idea. This is a philosophy well supported by members of both parties, both here in Georgia and in Washington, and has decades of research showing its efficacy. Thank you.
Senator, you have one more question, if you're willing to take it. Senator from 31st, you wish to rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you.
Absolutely, to my friend from
In your earlier presentation, I may have missed it, but are you voting yes or no on this bill?
I haven't decided. I voted no last year. I think, as I said, that tax relief can be an appropriate priority along with a balanced set of priorities. From where I sit and where my constituents sit, our priorities are not appropriately balanced. So I'm a little bit torn, as you might imagine. Were this more comprehensive, I would certainly be a yes. And I'm thinking internally right now in answer to your question, because I came in intending to vote for it, although I voted no last year, but as I've been listening to some of our colleagues, I may not be able to support it.
Thank you, Senator. Will you yield for one more question?
Certainly.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about engrossment, it seems like today. Do you know how many bills were engrossed in the 146th General Assembly back in 2001 when your party was in control of this chamber?
2001, let's see. I was in law school in Charlottesville, Virginia, so no, I don't.
There were 97 bills engrossed by the majority party back then, which was controlled by Democrats when I was an intern in this body.
So what I would say is that is what, 22 years ago? I'm not sure the relevance. Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any senator wish to rise for or against the measure? Senator from the 36th would like to speak to the bill. 2001, the good old days.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I have decided how I'm going to vote on this bill. Was in committee and heard the presentation, and this has been in the news and the media accounts for some time, and I simply cannot find peace in supporting this billion-dollar tax rebate when I am so keenly aware of the unfunded and unmet needs that we have in the state. You've heard a litany of issues that need to be addressed, and I want to raise at least one more, although the list is long, not short. And I know the senators around the room and in the chamber have heard this before, but do you sleep well at night knowing that Georgia broke its promise to our state employees? We had in law for decades that state retirees would receive a 3% cost of living COLA annually. We broke that promise when the Great Recession hit, and we're looking for dollars everywhere, and that was a soft target, the state employees who were retired. Let's just snatch that language out of the law books. That's what we did. A vote was taken to remove the language from Georgia statutes that we would honor our state retirees' long service, serving as servants to the people, providing services across the state, this great big state of ours. That language was removed with one fell swoop, and never again has a cost of living been provided to those state retirees. The Georgia State Retirees Association conducted a survey of their members this year. I believe they sent out inquiries to 4,000 people who've retired from state employment. They got back a resounding 25% response rate, very, very high. 1,000 retired state employees responded to the question of how are you doing? How's your household budget working? What is your situation? Are you thriving? Are you? I won't attempt to replicate the questions that were posed, but the answers are absolutely stunning and heartbreaking. That people who worked 25 and 30 and 35 years for the state of Georgia with a promise in the law books that they would get a cost of living annually of 3%. They haven't had that ever since we took that out of the law books. There's been a bonus here and there. There have been some adjustments. There was hope handed out last year that we're going to retool and come up with a formula and begin restoring some COLAs. Not to the 3% rate. No, that commitment was not made. But in fact, we're hearing from retirees that they're having to skip meals, borrow money from children, rely on relatives, do without, and sadly, it's heartbreaking to me. They often blame themselves. If I could just manage my money a little bit better, I guess somewhere along the road I made a mistake and didn't make good decisions. You know, that was the Neil Bortz line that got pushed on right-wing talk shows and radio. If things are rough, if you're having a rough spot, it's your own fault. No, it's actually because the state of Georgia broke a commitment that was made in writing, in the law books, statutory language, walked away from it in 2009, And we've never done right by our state retirees since then. And then we scratch our heads and wonder, why do we have a workforce shortage? Why are people not kicking down the door to get a job with the state? Well, they've canceled a pension plan. Not very attractive, is it? And then you ask these employees, and many times, to go into dangerous situations, go into seeking to manage some dysfunction in a family unit, for example, snatch kids out of harm's way, work in the prison system. Now there's a real choice, but you're not going to get a cost of living. In fact, people that we had promised a cost of living, what kind of message does that send? Now, I've talked too long. Lunch is looming. We've got other bills. But I say to you, when we put in a Social Security system in this country, we included, at some point, a cost of living. Anybody in here that's drawing a Social Security check, or your parents, your loved ones, your constituents, you're getting a cost of living annually. And why is that? Because if you don't get it, you will no longer be able to afford your essentials, if that's your sole revenue as a retiree. It's in every Social Security check, and you get a notice in the mail and how much it's going to be increased and what you're going to be receiving in the next year. That's a commitment to retirees. We have failed. We have failed as a state when we cannot keep that promise to our retirees, and the costs are many to the lives of the individuals who no longer have adequate income to keep their household together, meet their obligations, and to the people that need services across this state. And when we have a paucity of state employees, when we have the huge gaps in our workforce at the state level, that's one of the reasons I would opine. So I'm going to vote against this bill, because I know very well where we could be putting money. I know very well. I know the 7,000 families on the waiting list for waivers that wonder how is their child going to fare when they're no longer able to be the primary caregiver, and the waiver's not available. Think about it when you go to bed tonight. 7,000 people on the waiting list. 7,000 people on the waiting list for senior community-based services, in-home services. That's 2 waiting lists we've got there. And then we've got a shameful story as a state that we have broken our promise to state employees, retirees. So I ask you to consider that this bill needs some more work before it's ready. One way to put it. But I'm going to vote no, and I urge you to join me. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well. Thank you.
There's no questions, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senator from the 3rd, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate immediately transmit House Bill 162 to the House.
The senator has moved that the Senate immediately transfer House Bill 162 to the House. Is there objection? Without objection, the motion is granted. Moving on, the rules calendar. House Bill 311. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 311 by Representative Smith of the 70th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to general provisions regarding ad valorem taxation of property so as to provide for optional temporary tax relief to certain properties located in nationally declared federal disaster areas. The Committee of the Senate on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 28th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me great honor to bring you HB 311. And many of you remember a couple years ago, EF4 tornado ripped through my home county, my hometown. And, you know, I stood in this well shortly after and was very emotional. And I was emotional because, you know, I was riding into work that day, and it dawned on me that there were people back home, people that I represent, friends that I know, that I grew up with, that didn't have a home to go to. And, you know, as we rode over the devastation and looking down, and you look down and you see streets that you've traveled on your entire life and couldn't recognize them. I didn't recognize the main road that went into my high school, my alma mater, and where Representative Smith of the 70th over in the House, who brought us this bill, she was a teacher there at one time. But you could look down on the streets, and a street, I traveled this road probably thousands of times in my lifetime and could not recognize it. Well, the devastation was real, but the devastation didn't end there. What we found out was due to our laws and our Constitution that property taxes for these homes that were no longer standing, that property tax was set on on January 1st of that year. And so here we are on March 26th of 2021, and people without a home were about to have to pay the 100% of the value of their house, of that property tax. And there was no relief that our local tax commissioner could give to them. And so to the general chair lady from my hometown of Noonan, to her wisdom and her leadership, and she's standing with us in the chamber today, she came up with this idea, let's do a constitutional amendment. And so we passed that constitutional amendment last year. She called it the Pay It Forward bill, because this wasn't going to help our citizens. This wasn't going to help Noonan. It wasn't going to help Coweta County. But it was for future disasters. And so we put that measure on the ballot. It passed overwhelmingly on the ballot. The citizens of Georgia voted for it. And so this simply is essentially the enabling legislation for that ballot measure. Again, this isn't going to help our citizens in Noonan. It's not going to help Coweta County. But it will help Spalding County. It will help Butts County. And it will help Henry County, who all just recently got hit by a tornado. And so passing this today will immediately impact those citizens. They will can get immediate relief on their property taxes. And moving forward, and I hope we never have to use this again, but we all know natural disasters do happen. And with us passing this today and with your support today, not only will we be able to help those counties that are currently in need, but we're going to be able to help your counties moving forward. So, Mr. President, I will yield for questions, should there be any.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I really urge you to support HB 311. And again, I just want to thank my representative and my friend and mentor, Chair Lady Smith, for putting this together and allowing me to work with her on this. And just urge your favorable consideration. Thank you. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senators yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Moving on, House Bill H.R. 66, House Resolution 66. Secretary, read the caption.
House Resolution 66 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a resolution ratifying Governor Brian P. Kemp's executive order suspending the collection of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Finance recommends that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize Senator from the 3rd to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring before you House Resolution 66 on behalf of the governor to ratify his 7 executive orders since May 2022, suspending the collection of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes, which were pursuant to the supply chain state of emergency. Following the Governor and General Assembly's bipartisan efforts last year's legislative session with HB 304 and the governor's ensuing executive orders that were issued monthly in consultation with leadership in the General Assembly, this resolution would simply ratify governor's executive orders to temporarily suspend the collection of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes. This is a procedural step. It received unanimous bipartisan support in the House. Governor's actions delivered much-needed temporary relief to Georgians at the pump, saved taxpayers approximately $1.7 billion. Moreover, the governor's actions have allowed our economy to remain open and strong as we Georgians have collectively had to respond to record high inflation and financially stressful times. Mr. President, I will yield for questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Then I yield the well. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. Report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 53 and the nays are 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Moving on to the last bill of the day, House Bill 482. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 482 by Representative Saines of the 180th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to income taxes so as to provide for clarification with respect to an income tax credit for establishing or relocating quality jobs. The Committee of the Senate on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 56 to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 482 is a simple cleanup bill from the Department of Revenue to assure that anyone who's taking the Quality Jobs Tax Credit is a for-profit corporation. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. I want to remind our chairman that as of just now, we have passed 55 House bills to the House passing 6 of ours. 55 to 6. That is worse than UGA over TCU in the national title game. So right now, our chairmen are put on notice that you can slow play all you want to if you need to. So I'm a little disappointed. Majority Leader, recognize Majority Leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Considering your words of wisdom, maybe a siesta would be in order for the afternoon. In the meantime, I move that we adjourn until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, March 15th.
Secretary, read the announcements.
The Rules Committee meeting will happen upon adjournment in 450 of the Capitol. The Banking and Financial Institutions Committee meeting will happen at 1:30 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. The Retirement Committee meeting will happen at 1:30 p.m. in Mezzanine 1 of the Capitol. The Joint Children and Families and Education and Youth Committee meeting will happen at 3 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. The Regulated Industries and Utility Committee meeting will happen at 4:30 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. The Ethics Committee meeting will happen at 5:30 p.m. in 307 CLOB. And the Insurance and Labor, Life, Health, and Specialty Subcommittee meeting will happen at 6:30 p.m. in 310 CLOB. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The Majority Leader has moved to adjourn until 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 15th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. We're adjourned.